having worked in finance before, it definitely helped me a little bit on the bike in different ways. The first is that, having gone to Harvard and been in like a really rigorous academic environment and then gone to the finance world, I spent a lot of my time researching and studying and analyzing. And so when I came to cycling and I would ask, how do I get better at descending or how do I get better at coordinating? And everyone would say, oh, it's just experience. And I was like, no, it's not just experience. Like there's things I should be able to study and learn. And they're like, no, it just takes time. And I didn't like that answer. And so I basically forced myself to study as much as I could. And I created ways that I could study. So, for example, learning the other riders. I made flashcards of every single rider in the top 100 ranked UCI woman. And I looked at all their results and I made flashcards so that I knew who they were. And I knew if I came to the finish and these 5 riders were around me, here's the best play I should do, So that's one example. I watched races and I would make a write-up of every single race about this is what this team strategy was, this is why this person attacked when they did, this is why this person didn't chase. And then I would send that kind of analysis to my coach and he would write back and say, here's where you were right, here's where you're wrong, here's where we don't know. And then, I hired a consultant to basically help me with descending. And so everything that I did it with the approach that I was trying to condense my learning curve. And I knew that there were resources that could help me, either through studying, through finding mentors, through working part-time so I could save money to hire a consultant to teach me to descend. These were things. So I think in finance, I was working with startups who were very resource constrained. And so they had to be very resourceful about, how they grow their business, how we get the information we need about them. And so I took that same approach with cycling, which is I don't have a lot of resources, but I have a lot to learn in a very little amount of time. So I have to be really creative about how I learn that. And I think that really allowed me to have a fast learning curve. The second thing I would say as an investor, I was an early stage investor, which is highly risky. So we invest in startups and, about half of them fail, 30% break even, and maybe 10% really make the whole fund worth it. And so we have to take very calculated risks. They're risks, but they're very calculated risks. And it's all about kind of the expected value outcome, which is the risk times the reward. And so in cycling, it's actually very similar. When you're thinking about, should I attack here? Should I follow the group? Should we chase the breakaway? Should we not? Those are all expected value outcome calculations where you're balancing risk and reward. It doesn't really make sense to attack because you're likely going to get caught, but the reward if you do is great. And so that's an expected value calculation. And so when I would think about cycling, I think about it that way. So that's another thing. And then I guess a final lesson I learned is I had a boss once that told me that the best employees are T-shaped, which means that they're really deep in one area and they're broad in a lot of other areas. And this is kind of your secret sauce, what makes you unique. No one wants to fire you because no one else can do this, which you can do. And then this is kind of like you can make your way and communicate with different parts of the organization, And so I really took that to heart when I came to cycling because I was like, okay, this is how you win a race and this is how you don't get dropped. And maybe you have a few different spikes, but thinking about it that way really helped me because I wanted, when I started cycling, I was really bad at crit racing. I was really bad at sprinting. I was really bad at positioning. And there was a part of me that was like, okay, but I don't need to know those things to be good at, time trialing and attacking. But in reality, I do. And so I really had to work on that foundation when I moved to Europe to make sure I didn't get dropped from races. And only once I had that foundation could I start to focus on my deep area. And so my entire first year was working on sprinting, peloton positioning, understanding tactics, race tactics, communicating in the radio with my teammates, and all the things that would prevent me from getting dropped in a race. And only then, after I had that base, was I able to really specialize. And for me, that was my time trial. And that's why my time trial didn't really excel in time trials until this year. Because my first year, I couldn't focus on that specialization. I needed to work on my base. And so I think now, as I think about it that way, as I think about my training and what I need to work on in my macro goals for the year, I still have parts of my base that I want to build out. But I'm thinking, okay, now where's my next level of specialization? Is it going to be climbing? Is it going to be GC? Am I going to focus, and double down on the time trial? And so just thinking about my skills as being a bit more T-shaped, and do I want to focus on my base or do I want to focus on my specialization, and how much do I attribute to each, is a skill that it's an approach that I learned from finance.